Hey guys, we're Ali and Gary with Roll With Us DMs, professional game masters with over 17 years of experience that also love to go on some side quests with our friends, which you can see here on our channel.
Thank you for checking out our videos. If you haven't already, you should quest down to the subscription button and strike the notification bell so you never miss our content.
Our links are in the description below.
Consider becoming a channel member to access epic perks, including playing in one of our games. Now, on with the video.
Hi there, and welcome to this week's Refocus. Today's date is Monday, June 3rd, and with DC20's Kickstarter launching tomorrow, Tuesday, June 4th at 11 a.m. Central, I thought it would be fitting to go over my top 5 favorite aspects of DC20. So with that, sit back, relax, and I'm going to get into my top 5 favorite things about DC20. So as you can see on the screen, I have my top 5 favorite aspects. It's worth noting that it's not in any particular order. Normally I know you would do a countdown starting with the 5th favorite thing, counting down to the 1st. I would say that number 1 is probably my favorite overall, as a lot of the other features of this list are impactful because of number 1, the 4-point action economy, and also I can't really talk about number 2 without first talking about number 1, the 4-point action economy. So it is probably my very favorite aspect about DC20, and the reason is that it's the thing that sets DC20 the most apart from all of the other game systems, be it Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder. While it does draw from Pathfinder's 3-point action economy, this is revolutionary in the sense that your reaction is no longer separate from your other 3 actions. So where Pathfinder 2nd Edition was revolutionary in that it got away from having things like move actions and minor actions, bonus actions, and those kinds of things, and just said, here you have 3 actions and a reaction. Do what you want with these 3 actions. DC20 has taken that and elevated it to say, instead of having a reaction, you have 4 actions. Do what you want with it. And I think this is probably the most impactful over the others because this is something that every single class will experience as they play through the game. So while number 4 is a very big impact and very different than how other systems handle their spellcasters, the 4-point action economy is the backbone of everything else, and even those spellcasters. So let's move on. Number 2, this stacking advantage and disadvantage. I really have like 2 things to talk about here. The first is the fact that advantage and disadvantage stack so that you don't have these weird situations where somebody has 3 instances of disadvantage, 1 instance of advantage, and you've just canceled out all 3 instances of disadvantage by that 1 instance of advantage. So this is a very interesting way to handle advantage and disadvantage, which is pretty much a concept founded in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, I believe. I don't know of any older references, but if there are any, you could please put those in the comments. I do think it's also good that DC20 uses advantage and disadvantage because they are familiar mechanics, they're intuitive, and people will just pick up and know what to do with advantage and disadvantage. But that said, the other thing that's very interesting with advantage and disadvantage in DC20 is the ability to, as an action, grant yourself advantage. and even multiple instances of advantage. I had a player once say that DC20 asks you, how badly do you want to do the thing? Because you can do the thing with one action point and then spend 3 other action points giving yourself triple advantage, rolling 4d20 and taking the highest. Is that the best use of your action economy? I guess that's up for debate. The thing that I can say is that emotionally, you can pour everything that you want into that big thing that you need to do. And the fact that that ability is there is just, it creates the coolest moments at the table. Buy fives matter. This is another very cool feature of the game, kind of taken from Pathfinder 2nd Edition and expanded. So in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you do get a critical hit or a critical success if you beat an armor class or a difficulty challenge by 10 or more. But for DC20, buy fives matter. And what's cool about that is that it's easier to beat a number by 5. So this happens more often. And it allows for bigger things to come out of a single die roll. An example that I could give is in my last game of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, I was consistently rolling like 27 on my attack rolls, and it didn't matter. They weren't critical, so it, like, okay, I hit. But in DC20, like that 27, it might have beaten some creature's armor class by 10 or even 15, and each 5 that I beat their armor class by would have benefited me, and it would have been a much cooler moment at the table. So I think it's, again, just another example of DC20 taking something that Pathfinder did right and expanding it even further. So as we get into number 4, we have mana points. And this is truly revolutionary in my opinion. There may be other kinds of like spell points and things, and even 5th edition has an optional rule in the Dungeon Master's Guide. But the fact that spellcasters in DC20 don't have spell slots, and they're given a very generous 6 mana points at level 1, is very impactful. Because unlike in, say, Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, where at level 1 you usually only have 2 first level spell slots, and that's like it, and then you're out of your like premier spells for the day. In DC20, you have 6 mana points, and essentially they're kind of like spell slots in that you can spend them to cast spells, and then the amount of mana that a spell costs is kind of like its spell slot value, so that like a spell that costs 2 mana would be equivalent to like a 2nd level spell in those other systems. But what's just super cool here is that your mana points are not just for spellcasting. You can use them to fuel other really cool class abilities, like druids being able to create a grove of plants to literally warp the world around them to help them in battle, or a bard being able to do extra enhancements on their inspiration. I will say that once you get into spending your mana on class abilities, those 6 mana points do go pretty quick. But the flexibility is super cool, and it is definitely high on my list of favorite things. Number 5, we've got characters at level 1 are distinct and functional. This comes from a couple of aspects. Number 1 is the ancestry system is flexible, allowing you to pretty much customize whatever kind of ancestry and heritage that you want. This is very similar to Pathfinder 2nd Edition, except instead of being taken through very specific choose an ancestry, choose a heritage, choose a feat, you're pretty much customizing it entirely from many different choices. And the classes at level 1 also do feel distinct and fully functional, where in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of the time, DMs will have their players start at, say, level 3 so that they have a subclass and they're fully functional. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, I would say at level 1, you do feel like a complete class. So it's another thing that Pathfinder did right. I can't 100% say that DC20 has improved it, but I would definitely say that it has taken inspiration from Pathfinder in making sure that you can fulfill that class fantasy that you're looking for at level 1 right out the gate. So I'm already at 10 minutes. This refocus should be over, but I've got one bonus one for you because I don't know how I didn't get this on my list, but Death's Door. I have to mention Death's Door because nothing has been more impactful, I don't think, than the Death's Door mechanic for a couple of reasons. Firstly, death is actually very likely if you're not careful and try to stay north of 0 hit points. You die at -3 hit points. And the damage is lower, but like -3 is not a whole lot. And while you're at 0 hit points, you're not unconscious, which is incredible. You can still act, although you only have one action point. And I've just had some epic comebacks from players that their characters were on death's door, and or players who were able to still contribute to the fight even though they were on death's door, where if it was another system, they would be unconscious and just waiting for their turn to come around to roll a death save. So the entire death's door mechanic is very clean, it's very thematic, and honestly, if I had to pick the 3 things that set DC20 apart from all the other games, it's going to be the 4-point action economy, the mana points, and Death's Door. So with that, I'm refocused. I hope you have your focus point back too, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content that you just saw, consider joining one of our games at startplaying.gaming/rollwithusdms.